Um, and so the new book is Poems for the End of the World, which I actually wrote most of before the pandemic hit. So there's that. I started writing this book, most of the poems that are here in this collection, the summer of 2019, when the Amazon was on fire and I was working for Lighthouse Writers Workshop. And one of the programs that I was running then was an experimental project in which we were hosting writing workshops every weekend in local community gardens around the city with Denver Urban Gardens. So I was spending every Saturday morning sitting in a garden, mostly with Franklin Cruz leading the workshops and writing these poems on Saturday mornings in the garden and contemplating nature in the middle of the city, and thinking about those things, right? And so being really aware of like the environment in that space and thinking about also, you know, the crazy ways that my life was shifting at the time, right? 2018 was a wild year for me, lots and lots of transition, lots and lots of world endings. And I was still reflecting on that like through 2018, 19. So most of these poems were then, and then we have a few 2020 poems in here as well. So thank you all very much for coming to hang out on this Sunday afternoon. And for those of you who are watching this later, thank you for checking it out later on. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can definitely use the chat, or we can just chat. I'll pause between poems so we can talk about them if you would like to. So again, I'm Suzi Q. Smith, and these are some poems for the end of the world, available from Finishing Line Press in June, but pre-order is now. So it's still on pre-order now, and then it'll be actually shipped in June. So this is, I'm going to start with, this is the first poem in the book, and it's called Introductions in Green. Oh, actually someone just got here though, so I'm going to let them in really quickly. Thank you again for being here. So this is Introductions in Green. 1, I am going to die, obviously. So are you. We don't know when or who will go first. I'd better tell you everything I think I know or remember while I'm still alive. 2, these are my hieroglyphs. I hope you can use them. Some of them are recipes, some of them are prescriptions. 3, most are only moments I still have questions about or stones I wanted to squeeze before I skipped them into a deep lake. 4, probably this is the lake, and the stones and my hands, the ripples on the surface of the water as the stones skitter across, the fish, the flies, the mosquitoes. If there are ducks, this is them too. 5, maybe in the future, you won't know what a duck is. Maybe I should learn to draw a bird that flies and floats and stretches its long neck into water while its body is perfectly still atop the depths. 6, sometimes when the sun hits just right, the green in their feathers looks like emeralds or spray painted metal, a treasure it almost doesn't look real. 7, a treasure. 8, do you believe the wild and precious imagination of God? I hope you imagine something beautiful for God in return. 9, you are precious, you know? You are alive for now. I do not know if this will still be true when you read this, but so am I. 10, so many of our beloveds have not survived. Still, we are here, brave enough to have beloveds. Sometimes I close like a fist, and that too is love. 12, I exist, therefore I deserve to be loved. 13, I am learning to stop apologizing for declaring my own deservedness for love. 14, everything alive needs love, even the things with thorns, even the thorns, even the blood dripping from fingertips into the soil. Yes, even the finger. Yes, even the soil, the worms dancing in the dark of it. So that is the introduction to this collection of poems for the end of the world. And that is a series of fugues and meditations on the color green, if you will. So that's a little bit of what that is. Any questions, comments, concerns before I dive into the next poem?
Woohoo!
Well, thank you and welcome. Glad you guys are all here. So the next poem I have fun reading because it's a variation on a lot of what it's a little bit more prose in its nature than a lot of my poems are. And this is a how-to poem. As I mentioned in introductions in green, some of them are recipes, and this one is. So this poem is called How to Make Love. If you want someone to know that you love them, go to the local butcher. Buy the best whole chicken they have, organs and all. Go to the market with the best produce and buy a few onions, yellow enough to make you hungry, a few shallots, maybe 2 hands full, a heavy box of kosher salt, a pound of carrots so orange they sing, a stalk of celery crisp as winter, a quart of heavy cream thick as a cow's shoulder, a bottle of brandy or cognac, depending on what you like, a bundle of bay leaves, fresh if you can find them, a pound of butter. Now, you should already have several cloves of garlic on hand at home. We are talking about love after all, but it might be wise to add a few more to your basket if you feel like it's time. Now, we all have our own methods, but I feel like it's best to sing on your way home and while you're preparing the ingredients. I prefer Anita Baker and Donny Hathaway for this part, and of course, Stevie Wonder, but do you? Chop the yellow onions while you sing. Crying may also occur. Best to leave the onions in irregular pieces. Let your love know that you chopped them yourself. Cut the carrots into fat coins, then again in half if you feel like it. Wash the celery down to its base, all between the ribs where the dirt likes to hide. I hope I didn't have to tell you to wash everything else, your onions, your carrots, your hands. I like a heavy knife for all this chopping, but work with what you got. You don't need good knives to love somebody, but it helps. What you do need is a stock pot big enough to hold a whole chicken and all these vegetables plus some water. You should have a cast iron skillet too, but it's all right if you ain't that grown yet. Best to rinse the pot. It probably has some dust or grease on it from sitting on top of the fridge or under the sink or wherever you pull it out from. Now, on low heat, pour a little olive oil and let it warm. After about half a song, add your chopped vegetables to the pot and let them spend some time together under a lid. When they start to feel a little soft, stir them with a wooden spoon. I hope you have a wooden spoon. As for the chicken, if you haven't worked with a whole chicken before, the organs are probably inside it. You'll need to reach in between its legs and pull them out. This might sound nasty, and it might even be nasty, but it's got to be done. And if you can't handle a little nasty, you might not be ready to fall in this type of love yet. Set the organs aside. We'll do something with them in a little while. Don't let the juices spill on the counter. Put them on a plate or some type of container. Cover them and put them in the fridge. I'll tell you another time how to make pate. Now that your chicken is ready for cooking, I mean washed, ready, we talked about this. Wash everything. Pray however you pray. I give thanks for all my food, especially if something had to die. I thank my food, the land it grew on, the people who raised it, who slaughtered or harvested it. You ever think about how many hands and lives are involved on your plate? That's a lot of thank yous. Thank the chicken while you wash its body, while you go all in between its legs and pull its organs out. Thank it when you put it on top of the semi-soft vegetables stirred by a wooden spoon. Let the chicken sit on top of the onions, the carrots, the celery on low heat and under a lid. Let the steam help them get together and fall in proper love for the length of 2 or 3 Nina Simone songs, checking in between. Now, of course, we need to add water. Nothing good can grow without water. Some folks will tell you to use filtered water, which is good if you got it, but we come to the kitchen with clean hands and a pure heart, and we make the best out of what we have, and tap water will do just fine. Add enough water for the chicken to be cooked entirely, enough to let it rise to the top. Now, you'll want to add a couple of bay leaves or more if you like. Here is where we must listen to our own blood. A half palm of kosher salt, depending on the size of your hands. Let all of this roll into a soft boil, then bring the heat back down to low and walk away for an hour or so. This is a good time to do laundry, but probably not to read because it's too easy to get lost inside a book and forget to take the chicken out. When the chicken is cooked, and I mean falling off the bone cooked, not a shade of pink nowhere, bring it onto a plate and let it cool. It might fall apart in this process. Don't panic. We're about to take it apart anyway, so go ahead and bring it out in pieces if you got to. Now keep the broth on low, very low heat. When the chicken is cool enough for you to touch without cussing, pull the skin off the meat and the meat off the bones. Put the meat aside in a container, then into the fridge, and add the skin and bones back into the pot. We're gonna let these bones cook slow for a long time, all night. So go ahead and read now if you want to, and come back to this tomorrow. When you wake up, your whole house should smell like somebody loves you. There might be a layer of gel and fat on top of the broth. You're welcome. Now you'll strain the broth into another pot with the bones and skin and bay leaves and vegetables all boiled, lifeless, all looking each other in the strainer. You have compost that wants to spend time in your soil. We don't believe in wasting anything in this kitchen. Add this mixture to your compost bucket if you got one, or go ahead and start one in an old coffee can. Keep your broth on the stove, bring it back to a low boil, and add some rice. You washed it, right? I know I didn't tell you to buy rice, but you should already have some. If you don't even have rice, I don't know if you should be trying to cook love dishes just yet. And let the rice cook itself as long as you like it. And add the chicken from yesterday back into the pot and let it get warm. I know this sounds easy, chicken and rice soup, but if you do all this for your intended and they don't fall in love, you deserve better. And at least now, you know how to cook. And there's your recipe for how to make love. It may or may not work, but I recommend you try it. Questions, comments, concerns. You have this piece half memorized, Bianca? What?
I have any pieces of yours that I've seen half memorized. I'd be like, this is the one where she do the thing. Yeah, isn't that beautiful? You can smell this piece. And this piece I actually remember hearing right before literally the last event that we did before going on lockdown.
It was, I read it at Tilt West event that you were hosting.
Yeah.
The very last public reading I gave was this poem, in fact, yes.
Yeah. And I might have heard pieces of it or heard it before then, but that was definitely a very, very galvanizing experience. And also it's just the shit and you're the shit.
And we were talking about washing hands well before this happened, right? It's already written into this poem. Any questions, comments, concerns before I dive into the next one?
I just wanted to say hi, and I love you, Suzi, and this is so great. And I wanted to say, oh, I've ordered the book, but can you post that recipe so that I'll have it? And I go, no, actually, because I want to make the recipe for dinner tonight from what I remember it. And then in June, I want to have the recipe and make it again and see how it has evolved. In between. And I read your divorce recipe from your other book to a friend who is going through a divorce right now, and they ordered your book as soon as we hang up on the phone.
Thank you very much.
So your recipes are going in. I definitely see a recipe book in the future.
Thank you very much. So the divorce cake poem I wrote, I was actually taking a food writing class and people kept asking me to write recipe. I cook a lot and I make people dishes and then they ask me for recipes and there's no such thing as a recipe. So I can talk about my relationships to objects and items and ingredients. However, very much it is a lesson in listening to your own blood. And once you learn how to do that, then that is the recipe, right? So that's true whether you're making a divorce cake or whether you're making chicken stew.
I love chicken stew. And as Mike put in the chat, says, yes, love like recipes evolve, don't they? It's like, yes, Mike, they do. I love that.
Ooh, Jen, I bet your house smells amazing. And hey, Mike, thanks for coming. So these are, it's very challenging for me. This is genuinely how I cook. This particular piece is very much reflective of how I don't measure things exactly. And I also don't understand time because I'm a poet, obviously. So I do tell time by okay, wait, Luther started this song about this time. It's probably time to stir. And that's how I know when it's time. It's a sense. And so this relationship to music is usually, if I'm making a dish like this, I'm probably cooking, I'm probably singing, I'm probably vibing all the way through it. So this next piece that I'm going to read is short. And this is very, very directly related to the pandemic. And I wrote this just over a year ago. And it's called Mezzo Sopranos Get the Sad Songs. If you don't know, I did do a little bit of classic training in voice for a while. So my voice is generally considered mezzo. And so mezzo soprano is like a medium soprano, right? So the coloratura sopranos, the very high voices in opera, typically get like the falling in love roles. That's when the one who's like very very joyful and always gets the other character, and they usually like get what they want. Whereas there's the very sad mezzo who's also in love with like the other lead character and like doesn't ever win, right? So it's typically how it goes, which is why the arias that I know well are generally tragic, right? So it's called mezzo sopranos get the sad songs. Did you hear the one about the long lines around the gun shop and the sold out bullets and the empty grocery store shelves in the United States? What will happen when our lights are out? I hope we sing like the people in Italy. I only really know two arias, one of which is Lasciatemi morire, translation, bring me my death. So I don't think I'll sing that one, but I'll tell you this, I'll sing before I shoot. I'll sing before I shoot. You've never been afraid of heaven anyhow. And so that's another more specific and immediate reference to some world endings and beginnings. As you'll see through these poems and as it continues to sort of unfold, the world has ended many, many times. My world has ended. I'm not sure if anyone else's world has ever ended once or twice. A few times. Mine ended a few times. I think in 2018 alone, my world ended a few times. In 19, definitely hit some endings. 2020 also quite a few world endings in there. And yet, here we are. And that's something, right? So there must have also been some beginnings. So this collection contains a lot of those. We did have. No, I don't want to actually read this poem, so I'm not going to. I always have set lists, guys, and then I change them. And I'm changing it right now because I don't want to. There was a piece about the previous administration in there that I was going to read next, but I just don't feel like calling that into the space right now. I hope that's okay. But that was definitely a world ending for many, many, many people around the world, and that's discussed in this collection as well. But I want to read this one. This is a poem that I wrote for my grandmother. And it's called The Laughing Barrel Must Have Been Cobalt Blue. Under the shadow of a headline, looking too much like our children, we tucked and folded and gathered ourselves and each other into the skirt of my grandmother's dining room tablecloth, all of us lamenting and listing the labors and losses, the tables spilling over with stories of the times the police were called or not called but came, the last jobs or second interviews, the neighbor or the grocery store clerk, the child at school and or their mother and or their father and or the teacher, and the table listening, dipped in the center near to snapping under the burden until my grandmother emerged from the kitchen, apron speckled. But here is the thing, the real thing, her pointed finger stern and scolding us into silence. Would any of you want to be anything other than what you are? And we sat, stunned, staring at ourselves until we began to laugh. And we laughed. We laughed into each other's shoulders. We laughed into howling, howled into howling until the moon herself walked into the room, staggering, crooked finger in the air, laughing her round face into our laughter, howling a perfect mirror, our moon eyes, spilling throaty and harmonious, looking and laughing and loving our rich and delicious lives, too perfect, too precious. We ate to music. We ate without muting, our tears rolling into our open mouths. And I think I'd like to maybe just jump directly into another piece that is related to that one very much in a more specific and direct way. And so this piece is also dedicated to my family. And this is called The World Ends and Ends. And it's very much in the same vein. And then we can talk a little bit and do some questions, comments, concerns. So this piece is called The World Ends and Ends. Me and my cousin laughing about the perfect shade thrown by old ladies. I like how you had your hair yesterday. That dress don't leave much to the imagination. Did you mean to go that short? You know what's a better color for you? Her friend interjects, says shade from old men hits harder. My cousin says we wouldn't know. We don't have any old men in our family. My cousin is in town for a funeral again. We have learned to mourn. We have learned to laugh and cry in a single sentence. My cousin's father died days before her birthday. Her birthday. She wants me to hear her freestyle. She left rehab to come to the funeral. She's afraid to rap for me because I'm a serious poet, she says. I tell her I can pull up instrumentals on my phone. I step outside with her while she smokes her cigarette and raps. She's leaving a voicemail for someone I don't know, someone she says owes her money. Her freestyle is mostly about the debt she is trying to collect. She reminds him that she knows where his mama stays. Her language is sharp. She blushes when two old white ladies walk past looking shocked. We look at each other and laugh like when we were little girls. She finds her rhythm again. Over there, she is pointing, is where my granny got her first DUI. And over there, she is pointing again, is where I got my first DUI. Her birthday. Her daddy just died. Her birthday. The bar has cut her off. Her birthday. She loves everyone except that one person whose name I don't know. She's leaving this voicemail for. She wipes her face and says, "We're not doing this today." I say, "Go ahead and cry, cousin." She asks me to take her to get weed so she can be happy again. My cousin is a language I understand. I say no. She snatches drinks from the table and they are half gone before we can stop her. She laughs. She thinks she's slick. She is slippery as age and sobriety. We got good calluses for grip. We hold each other in prayer, in hope, in resignation, in memory. I hug my cousin, say she is still magnificent and I still see her. I hug her son, her nephew, say she wasn't always like this. Me and my cousins stayed up late in my auntie's basement, practicing our dance routines. Summer, the choreographer, Tammy, the ballerina, me and Raven, the youngest, mostly doing what they said, but put our own spin on the snake, shaking our shapeless hips, pinched our nostrils together and sucked them in while we did the cabbage patch, took turns dancing in the circle, shouting, "Go, go, go," until it was "Go, Suzi, go, Suzi, go, 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 Suzi." And I would get shy and say I didn't want to dance no more. And sometimes we could hear the grown folks yelling at each other upstairs, but we could turn the music up and keep dancing, playing Janet Jackson until the tape warped, playing Whitney Houston until the tape warped, until somebody yelled for us to shut up and go to bed and don't make me come down these stairs. We laugh and cry in a single sentence. We lose and find our rhythm in a single bar. We live while the world ends and ends. Whew. And now I'm going to breathe for a second. That poem is a lot. But thank you for riding with me on it. And I'm going to sip my water really quickly. I'm going to pop over here. And drink some water. So those are some family poems and the ways that the world ends and ends and ends and also continues and continues. Questions, comments, concerns?
Do that shit.
Thank you, P. Anyone else have some questions, comments, concerns? I mean, we can keep on reading poems if you want to. I just sipped water, so I feel like I could read poems for a little while. Okay. We'll get back into them then. But if you might take a look at the chat and see if there's something that I missed, but thank you all very much.
We can listen to you reading poems for longer than you can probably be reading poems.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So this poem, I haven't even told you where to, if you haven't pre-ordered this book yet, I should probably post the link. So it is, again, from Finishing Line Press, and I'm posting the link right here. That will take you to it if you haven't pre-ordered this. I'm not entirely sure yet how signing is going to go because no one really knows. We have accepted that everything is a little unpredictable, so we stay flexible. But I can certainly sign nameplates and send those to you. So those are things that are possible. We're getting creative. We're doing stickers. We're doing all kinds of things that make book signings possible in this day and age. So I'm going to read you a poem that is a tribute to Lucille Clifton. So Lucille Clifton has a poem called "The Lost Women," and I love Lucille Clifton, and I'm really really grateful for her and her work. And I read this poem once, and in The Lost Woman, she's really looking for this sense of sisterhood and these friends that felt lost to her. And when I read it, it made me consider, how grateful I am in which in my life they've been found, right? And I have some really, really beautiful sisters in my life, and my literal sisters, my stepsisters. I've also got beautiful women friends who have become sisters. And that is a really, really beautiful way to live. I'm very, very grateful for it. And so I'm glad to be born in a time in which that's possible. So this is dedicated to her. And this is the found women. I know their names, beloved and tender. These women I walk with, we gather each other bustling, bountiful skirt bottoms held together in fists, bounding upstairs, blistering with laughter, jauntily, jauntily. I know their names. Our soft arms swinging and crooked, hooked into each other's elbows, sweating, swapping stories. I have joined the tables of women who labor, who suck and chew the marrow, who laugh and joke into our beer, who rowdy howl in alleyways and gardens. We gang, we team, we laid proper now. Found and finding ourselves, we grow thicker every day. I know their names. Sticky thunderous, chorus each other's days, make our tables round with bounty, sweep ghosts out of doors, grease scalps, bring stew, make medicine, raise babies, gather ourselves and each other. I know our names. We salve salvation delicious. We ripe, round, juicy, bursting joy. We sharp arrows, straight aim. We women, we sistren, we laugh, we love ourselves and you. We found and finding each other, we still got plenty of room. And I think often about Lucille Clifton. And one of my very, very favorite poems is "Come Celebrate with Me," right? And there's a part in which she says, um, here on this starship, this bridge between starshine and clay, what did I see to be except myself? I had no model, right? And I think about that often, and I'm so grateful, that I've had so many models. So I was just posting about that earlier, thinking about Maya Angelou, whose birthday is today. So happy birthday, Maya Angelou. But thinking about how easy that was for me to just be able to, one, I grew up in a family of artists, right? So I was introduced to poetry very early. My great grandfather was a poet, right? But I also could like come home from school, turn on Oprah, and there would be like Oprah and Maya Angelou just like chopping it up about poetry, right? And that was something that was not unusual. And so growing up in a time that Toni Morrison was writing books, right? And getting to be alive at the same time as Toni Morrison for a long time, right? Getting to be alive at the same time as Maya Angelou, right? Getting to be alive like after Lucille Clifton and Gwendolyn Brooks and Audre Lorde and like so many of these brilliant poets that had paved this way. And they had no model, but I did. Them. I'm so deeply grateful for them. And in addition to my grandmother and many of my foremothers, right? So I'm really, really grateful that I get to be alive now and when I got here, because if I'd been born 100 years earlier, I think that it would have been much more challenging. And I don't know if I would have made it, y'all. I don't know, but I'm here. I mean, I might be about halfway through my life at this point, and that's something. I'm in my 40s now, guys. I'm in my 40s, which is something. I'm pretty excited about it. Um, and I'm grateful for it. Any questions, comments, concerns? If you don't have amazing friends, I hope that you get some amazing friends because they help you live. They help me live anyway. And many people listening to this and that are in the room right now are part of that group. And I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for every single one of you that's here right now. So thank you. This poem I don't want to read, so I'm gonna keep going. I don't want to read that one right now either, but I will read this one. So this poem is, oh goodness. I'm guessing that many of us have been touched by grief in the last year. I certainly have been. The last 2-3 years, I've lost a lot of people in my family. Last year, 4 people in my family were gone within about 2-month period. So grief has definitely been something very present in my life for a while. And so this poem is about that, and just kind of a walk with grief, right? And so it's called How to Grieve. When you are ready to begin, look for something alive, something new and opening. Bend your hand around the flame of this tender joy. Let it light your way. Place bare feet on the ground. Kneel. Press knees forward. Sit back on feet. Stretch arms up overhead. Press forward. Fold into the earth. Forehead. Palms, all touching the naked dirt. Turn head to the side and press left ear to the ground. Listen. Turn head again. Press right ear to the ground. Listen. Stretch body flat out, pressing chest into the tender or even frozen soil, and lay there, heart open, arms stretched wide to either side, fingers curled like claws and grasping, clawing, digging. Let the earth remind you of how much voice you've swallowed and feel it well up in your throat. Wail when you're ready. Moan like the wounded animal you are. Pound your fists against whatever earth is still holding you and howl the names of all that has been taken from you. Call their names up from the mossy well they have been nearly forgotten in. Claw them up and back to you. Know that you are theirs. They are yours. Hold them. Open your arms wide enough for your shoulder blades to touch and wing again. Become an open door and let the light move through you. Become yourself again. These found now treasured bones, unburied and blessed. Let us weep at the reunion of self and hold. Let us braid ourselves back together. Let our prayers be remembered and heard. Let us become ourselves again. Let us become each other's again. Healed, whole, beloved. So that's a little about grief. There are a few pieces in there about grief. And I'm guessing there's a few people in here who have also experienced a touch of grief. If not recently, probably at some point in your life. I'm going to read this next poem. This one also was written about a year ago. And the title of it is The Illness of Spring 2020. 99.5. I'm fine. After the shower, my skin burned. Might got a touch of that young Rona, but I'm good. Don't worry about me. I worked out today and everything. I sweat past fever, past illness, past, drink ginger, drink vinegar, drink broth, take B and C and D and zinc, elderberry, nettle, Irish moss, pineapple, ashwagandha, 100 for 2 days, then gone. I slept and slept. Cough came and came, head weighted, piercing cleanly into and through my sheets. So many days I still dance through and against coughing breaks. 100.5. People send videos and voice messages, conspiracies about where the virus came from, what they don't want you to know about cures, how to blow dry up your nostrils and hop on one foot, why Black people can't get it, why it's killing Black people first, as if I don't already write about the tortured history of Black people and medicine, as if my Black grandmother didn't work as a surgical technician for 30 years, as if she didn't raise me washing my hands. 101. For 2 days, then returned, as if I don't already know the ins and outs of illness and conspiracies, as if I haven't been my own primary caregiver for years, so I don't tell them I'm sick. The last thing I want is their suggestions or to use my small energy calming their fears. I know how to navigate illness. 101.5. For 3 days, then gone. I mean, I feel like I've got a belt wrapped around my lungs, but I've rapped on stage in a corset more than once. I'm good. Having my lungs known wisdom and vice enough to surrender breath. Surrender, I know well enough to text my daughter somewhere in the midst of it, 102 for 1 week, then return. If it should get bad, I'll let you know. And if it gets really, really bad, you're my beneficiary and everything I have is yours. Not to be morbid, you already know the passcode to my phone. We've both been through enough not to cry about this, to trust wisdom for now and save theatrics for a more reasonable, quiet. I hope I did well enough with my life. I still got plenty to do. I hope I loved hard enough. I mean, I might have loved too hard, so hard I got distracted from my work, which is another kind of love, a less specific, all God's children kind of love, burns longer, quieter, enough to light another fire. Maybe I got too caught up, frivolous, and focused on a single man's cheekbones or voice, hands, whistling him in and out around my thoughts and probably wasting precious time. Maybe I should have loved myself harder or scooped my flesh out by my own hands full, offering it to every passerby. Are cannibals God's children too? I fall asleep every night curled up with a question. But at least I have insurance and money in the bank. If there are still banks tomorrow, if there is still tomorrow, I'll go back and forth writing about myself in past and present tense. So there's a touch of that young Rona poetry for you, if you will. Questions, comments, concerns?
My God. Just, I don't have any of those things. I'm just emoting at you because
It's clear
dear Lord.
all I do is party. That's my life. It's it's just party is a
Just
verb.
felt just super my
I I'm fun all the time. I just kick it, just a good time. Yeah, so I have a lot of poems about a lot of things. I feel a lot of feelings, guys. And I'm great now, by the way. And I'm not sure what the illness of spring was for me in 2020. The illness that I had, it may or may not have been that. I didn't get tested, so I don't know. But being that I did return to teaching children full time back in January of 2020, possible, even likely. But I'm fine now, and thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I might read. I don't feel like reading that one either. I do change my mind frequently about poems and what I want to read. And I think I want to read this one that my grandmother likes. It's always oh no, this one's fun too, though. Oh, that one's fun. I might get into it. It's fun to me to read poems that my grandmother likes because that's not all the time that I get to do that. But this one sort of makes me laugh. And I don't know if I've ever read this anywhere yet. So this one is fun for me. And so, oh, and Jessica, you've got some kids eating lunch in the background. Well, hey, kids. This one, I'm trying to remember if there's language in this. No, I don't think there's any strong language. There might be some strong imagery in it, but I don't think strong language. So this poem is called In the Beginning, There Was the Word, and the Word was Good. Born from a celestial story, I'm mixed, half wolf, half lion. Constellations so common, we bore ourselves with a name. We've heard this joke before, punchline not even worth pretending. Dead stars I push around with the tip of my sneaker. There I bore myself with myself and my own imagination of where I come from and how little I regret. Have learned how to hold back my teeth when I pray, when I'm prostrate before my lover. He is doing the Lord's work. So am I. Everything is possible when you learn to walk with a broken limb. Devastation is described as unexpected climbing. How boring it could end if I weep at every fallen tree or lay myself down mourning every time I am surprised. You've never heard me moan, unless you have, which you remember. My teeth remember the resistance of a celestial shoulder. Someone asked me once why, after my opponent cheated, I was not angry. I paused to consider whether I had forgotten my rage. I won. I laughed a Uranus moon. I still won. My ancestors' bones laugh in constellations. They gave me these teeth, this sharp, sharp ink, this hunger. I do not regret my birth or my father. I'm not angry or even disappointed. He never taught me what he still does not know. And even that story is boring too. We've all been in this movie before. A tale so predictable our teeth fall asleep telling it. Baby, Remember the time I stepped out the screen to wrap my legs around your waist, your tongue in my mouth. We made love half laughing about robbing banks. Sometimes the jokes we tell are not funny. Sometimes I kick stars. Sometimes it rains bullets. Certain scripts always demanding stars and blood and dead and tires that screech and eyes that follow a collarbone into the horizon and still feel lips resting on its narrow edge, dipping into the crevice, a perfect yolk and brown sugar melting into an orange sleep. But I can imagine much more entertaining for uses for blood than spilling. Finding when you find yourself swelling. Maybe even kisses are boring, but not when I am properly watered. Isn't everything a river? Always leaving, always here. I've never been as easy to drown as people think. Maybe you haven't seen my calves lately, but they're storytellers too, all this walking. I love and love majestically, love a majestic man tenderly enough to limp. Tell me what you know or imagine of courage. I'm unafraid of mine. You have not heard me howl, roar, descend from heaven with a clap of thunder, but you know when I walk into a room, this warrior body, this heaven been taking names. My deep-throated east-facing call beckons the sky I come from to yield its due, fold sticky night into boiling. I am new, fresh-born feral, eyes ablaze behind wild-haired navigation. I do not regret my map, my voice, my compass, my blood. Call, caw, crow to my bones and breath, and they come, unearth and gather, remember their shape. A low hum they rumble. It is always now. The earth, pursed and ready lips come clean into each other, erupt into heat and wet so loud we can't wait to write the script. When did the river learn to run? When did I? Leapt from heaven into the baptism of my birth, I breathe natural like nothing is a costume. Like my blood is my inheritance, belongs to me even when rushing to the surface of a genius stroke, even when spilling into cosmic joke. You ever heard blood laugh? When it mocks, when it weeps, when it prays, when it soars. So that is full of small jokes that I tell myself. And sometimes I try to write a little bit of humor into my poems. And sometimes it works. And I don't know if it worked that time, but I do make myself laugh a little bit. Questions, comments, concerns? I know I said a lot of things in there. Thank you for laughing at my jokes, Bianca.
I get it. It's all the funniest thing. It's so good. It's so boring.
Well, thank you. Thank you for laughing along with me. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Devastation is a little boring, ultimately. So yeah, I laugh at a lot of these things. That's also, again, when we talk about the world ending and the world beginning. Another thing that can be world endings can be broken hearts. Anyone ever had a broken heart? Just this guy, or is it all of us? Maybe at some point. I'm guessing we've all been there on some point. At some point. So, so this is a short poem about that kind of world ending, and this is called Breakup Poem Number 5011. Men who don't love me, I could buy by the barrel. Those who want the company of my skin and silence, I lose count before breakfast. My last breakup, I told him, I'm glad we caught it early, like it was a cancer and not a love. The one before him, I said, I really dodged a bullet this time. My homegirls never believe me when I say the men don't love me because they actually can't imagine anyone not loving me. I feel the same way about them, and ain't that love? The purest kind. I got some good friends, guys. And I'm grateful for them. I hope that you do too. So, for those of you who have never had your heart broken, congratulations. May it never happen to you. I think it should happen to everybody. I think it's good for you. It makes the heart stronger. It busts it open a little bit, and it forces it to expand. And in that way, pretty grateful because my heart's like big enough to like swallow us all, right? I think it probably is, the final frontier. is probably my heart just swallowing us all into one giant supernova. And I think that's how new universes get born, right? This is why they let me teach science, right? That's what black holes are, right? It's just someone that loves a little too hard. And that's probably me. So I'll read perhaps one last, I think, and then we might just chat a little bit. Oh, I didn't read the one that my grandmother likes, and I think I should because she's not listening to this right now because it's Easter Sunday and she's obviously at church. But this is called "We Sang Ourselves Free," and so this is an imagined retelling of from the future. From a liberated future, from a successfully joyous, liberated future. This is looking back and telling the story of how that came to be. So we sang ourselves free, and I'll probably close with this. We didn't always know we would win, just that we would do whatever we had to in order to get free. We used to sing softly to each other, to ourselves, hum low under our breath to remember our voices in places we were unwelcome. We danced in secret. We laughed silently across rooms, taking our quiet joys and tucking them into our pockets like perfumed handkerchiefs we could smell later when we needed to remember. Our foremothers and forefathers built a bridge of sound and hope that only a few could hear. We heard their call from the heavens, though, and we answered them all. We answered, becoming flesh and voice and song. If you listen closely enough, you will know how beautiful we are. Someone tried to stop their music, the love they found each other in, tried to turn them into silence as if they could ever be less than furious messengers of a love lived out loud. Everything we do is song. We are a dance unsilenceable. One day, we saw the first rose bloom in years when we sang the low notes we'd been singing since before time had a name. We got louder. More people joined in the song, and the grasses awoke from their slumber. The wolves came and sat at our feet, weeping. The rains came down and the trees remembered us. We began anew, and we knew God was listening. The rains came the way they come, slow and sweet at first, washing the old ash and dust to the rivers. Then again, there were rivers where we washed our hands and feet, where we washed each other's hair, where we sang our old songs and the earth heard, answering in heather and pine. And she answered in the day's harvest, yellows spiraling into violets, sweets wrapping themselves in spicy oranges and fuchsias tumbling all over each other to embrace the sour and soft fruit of each other. We ate and grew fat again. We all fell madly in love and raised perfect children, the sort of perfect that brought us into each day laughing. We grinned rich as noonday, each of us carrying the songs and teaching them to the children how to stretch a note all the way into fingertips until the trees begin to sway. You feel that? We said to each other, our hairs standing to answer the electric air. Yes, we all answered. Yes. Thank you all so very much for coming and for being here with me today on this very fine Sunday afternoon or morning. And for those of you watching it later, wherever you are, I hope that you've enjoyed this reading. Before I close, any questions or comments or concerns? And I see Mike's question, poetry is the science of the heart? Absolutely. I make up things about theoretical physics every day. I try to pass it off as science, and that's why they let me teach creative writing, but they don't let me teach science. So I think it is science, like obviously. But yes, it's probably best that they don't let me teach science. So I think they're very much related. Well, I hope you all, oh, do you have a question?
Suzi, no, I just want to say this was amazing. I mean, I know we're all like zoomed out and things, but just want to say I think this is the third reading of yours that I have attended in the last like 3 weeks, and the world is beginning to make sense again. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very, very much. I'm glad that like the timing has been interesting and strange. And you know, writing a book called Poems for, that was already titled before the pandemic came out. Like, this is already a thing, Poems for the End of the World. And then it became, sometimes I say even like, unfortunately, very timely. In fact, Bianca McCon and I, who's right here, are working on a song together about the end days. And we keep meaning to like put the finishing touches on it, and our lives are both wild. And so we're having a hard time finishing it. But also it's just like, we keep thinking there's this urgent moment that we have to get it out. We're like, oh no, unfortunately, this moment is like every day. So we can probably drop this song whenever, and it's gonna be great. It'll be timely.
Especially in America, it always works.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about unjust lack of humanity.
Like, is that yesterday or tomorrow? I don't know.
Yeah, every season.
Yeah. So
It
it
works.
never really goes out of style. So poems
There
for
are
the world.
plenty of things about this world that I hope do come to an end. And the end of worlds is also the beginnings.
Indeed, indeed. And also, I think, you know, I mean, I find world endings very, very interesting, like as a philosophy and as a theory. And I was a person who was raised going to church 5 times a week with a really, really strong belief in the rapture, and thinking like it was going to be over at any point. But also, like when you study, like, you know, and start looking into like all of the different times in which the world was going to end, and times that people believed it and really expected the world to end, like, oh, that's actually just always been a thing. Probably since the world began, people have been waiting. We're like, is this it? Is this it? I think this is it. I think this is it, right? So I think that maybe just part of the human experience of going like, hey, I think, is it ending right now? I think it's ending. Maybe it's all the time. So, and yes, it has ended lots of times, and then it begins again. So that is what this book is mostly about. And I'm excited to be able to share it with you. And this is the last reading I'm going to give on this book until I have like physical copies in my hands, because I still don't have those yet. But this is the last reading during the pre-sale period that I'm going to do from this collection. And then I'm probably going to hush until June. So what's really going to happen? So I hope that you all enjoy the rest of this fine and beautiful day. I hope you get to look into the faces of some people you love. If you haven't done that yet today, you can turn your camera on and just, we could all fall in love right here. I'm like, hey guys, hey, and do that for a moment. But on that note, I'm going to bid you all adieu. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. It looks like Bianca is farming. That's a great way to spend the day. And I will see you again soon. Thank you again for coming. It's nice to see your faces.
Thank you for this medicine, Suzi. What a perfect way to pray and meditate or rest or whatever you're trying to do today. Like, you're incredible.
So are you. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Suzi.